Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea. It is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, join us as we gather together to talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, a little bit of televisions, all sorts of good stuff. And joining me here today, of course, coming to us live from his observatory with functional internet today, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Yes, they turned my internet on and off sporadically all day yesterday, and I was not aware of that. I was able to do my show, but in the morning and in the late afternoon, no internet, John. And you know what I felt like? I felt naked and helpless and alone.
It's like when you go out and realize you didn't bring your phone with you. First world problems. I think that's what we're dealing with all the time here, guys. Hey, listen, guys, we have a lot of things to talk about here today, not the least of which we're going to talk about that meeting that happened between Patrick Stewart and Kevin Feige to discuss the possibilities of Professor X coming into the MCU. We're going to talk a little bit about some comments being made, some directors suggesting maybe the Academy Award should have a best male and female directors. Is that a good idea? Not such a good idea? What does the official release of the shooting locations for the upcoming third Spider-Man film tell us, if anything, about the movie? Joaquin Phoenix makes a really nice tribute to Heath Ledger. That and a few things more, guys. But before we get to any of that stuff, let's go right off the top with a couple of things. First thing we're going to talk about here today is this. You know, we've been discussing lately, Rob, the Dolittle situation and the Dolittle movie. And, you know, look, this is going to be a movie that some people are going to like. Some people are going to like this movie because that's the subjective nature of film. And that's awesome if they like it. I wish I liked it. However, I did not. I thought it was pretty bad. And for a $175 million film, not including the marketing costs, which you're probably tagging on another $75 to $100 million right there. You're talking about a movie that needs to pull in somewhere around $400 million plus to break even. They're now projecting that with its opening weekend of $22 million, they're projecting, Rob, that Dolittle is going to probably end up, it's not a certainty yet, but is probably at this point going to end up losing more money than Cats did. They're saying it could lose in excess of $100 million. Now, what we as film fans often do is we are desensitized to these giant numbers, and we think that's nothing. Oh, it's a big studio. Losing $100 million is nothing. It's something. It's big.
Yes.
There are people who are going to lose jobs over this. There are departments that are going to be shut down over this. We're talking about imagine having $100 million in your lap one day and tomorrow it's gone, Rob. And tomorrow it's gone. I mean, it's kind of like it is right now because I don't have that at the moment, but still, I didn't have it yesterday and today that it's gone. This is a huge, huge loss. And Rob, you got to, at this point, ask the question, why was this a film that just did not appeal to the audience to come out and give it a shot? Because at a $22 million opening weekend, was it bad marketing? Was it just the concept was an outdated concept? Was it the fact that, you know, people are just still too in tune with seeing Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man? Was it the fact of the timing of I mean, what was it about this film that just made people look at it and go, meh, not interested? How do you see it?
Well, I think there's a number of things. First of all, I don't know. I was just saying to you how far, you know, they went a long way down the road with this movie, and there were a lot of problems. People knew there were problems. There's been articles written about the problematic nature of this film. Stephen Gaghan, the director, good writer-director, never worked with visual effects before. I don't know how he found himself in the director's seat for this, what was going to be always an expensive movie. But I have to tell you, even I love my fantasy movies and talking animals, John. I have a thing for talking animals. If they're funny, if there's something about talking animals that it always kind of appeals to me if it's done well. Nothing about this movie appealed to me. And I'm pretty forgiving. I mean, I'm the guy that loves Star Crash after all. But this film did not. I mean, this movie just, you know, you looked at it and you could just tell it wasn't inspired. It didn't look like it was particularly fun. And I understand they're you know, when you see Robert Downey Jr. as Sherlock Holmes, there's something inherently appealing about that. You could tell from the trailers before you even saw the movie that there was something you wanted to see. This film was a smorgasbord of things I don't think anybody wanted to see. You know,
A plethora, if you will.
of cornucopia of unappealing elements. And, you know, there's an article in Forbes magazine about how Robert Downey Jr. is not a movie star. And I don't think that's true.
No, that's not true.
I think that Robert Downey Jr. is, in fact, a movie star. He's been holding the screen for decades now. But you have to put him in the right material. You have to give him something that audiences look at and go, I got to see that. And it's been done before. Look, I went and saw Kiss Kiss Bang Bang for the first time. I know it was Shane Black, but you could just tell that the chemistry between Val Kilmer and Robert Downey Jr., and that was Robert Downey Jr. coming off his, let's call it, The Troubles. You could tell that movie was going to be something I wanted to see. It wasn't a huge success, but it was a really good movie. And every time
it was an awesome movie. It was fantastic. I love that movie.
And that's the movie Favreau saw and said, Downey Jr. can do Iron Man, can be Tony Stark. And I just don't know, how does a big studio get so far down the road? And like you pointed out, maybe they got too far down. They lose less money by finishing than if they just pull the plug. I mean, nobody ever really just pulls the plug on movies. They just keep throwing money at them, hoping somehow they can fix them. And I don't think that's always the best thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, Robert and I were talking about this before the show started. It's like, at what point do you go, listen, this movie is just turning out to be more trouble than it's worth? But think of it this way, too. If it does end up, let's say it, for argument's sake, it ends up losing, I don't know, we're going to pick a wild number, $95 million. Let's say this movie ends up costing $95 million. I would venture a guess that by the time they figured out that this movie was going to be a bit of a disaster, they had probably committed to or invested over $95 million already. So then it becomes financially advantageous to just keep going. I mean, that's the weird thing about the economics in this business, right? So listen, and I don't think this is going to end up being the worst movie of the year or anything. It was filled with all the right intentions. I could see what they were going for. It's just, for me, it didn't work. But there are people out there who are really enjoying it. That's the great thing. Question I have for you guys is, according to the numbers, a lot of you guys didn't go to see this movie. I'm just curious, if you did not go to see Dolittle, what was it specifically about the film that kept you away from it? Was it the concept? Was it the Robert Downey Jr. thing? Did the trailers just not look good? Like, what was it about it that made you go, I'm going to take a pass on it? I'm curious to know your thoughts. Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's do one more thing off the top here, and that is this. Rob, we've been talking for a number of months about the upcoming Blake Lively film with Jude Law, Rhythm Section.
Really looking forward to it.
We've been really looking forward to it. We've been talking about it, but, you know, I haven't really had a very clear picture, what I would call a very clear picture about really what this movie was truly going to be. You know, we could hear them talk about it. We read a little bit of a synopsis, all that kind of stuff, but it's tough to get a sense of the DNA of a film just on reading synopsises and whatever. Well, the new trailer for Rhythm Section just came out, and I'll tell you what, Rob, this trailer is great.
Yes, it is.
I love this trailer. And there's something about Blake Lively that I have always liked. She hasn't always chosen the best things to be in, but like, it doesn't matter. Like, even when she's in something that's not, say, top shelf, she usually brings something really special. And then when I saw her last year, I mean, I've talked a lot about A Simple Favor that her and Anna Kendrick did last year, which is like one of my surprise movies of the year. If you guys haven't seen A Simple Favor, go check out A Simple Favor. But I'll tell you what, this trailer is pretty damn great. I mean, the basic premise isn't so wild and out there, okay? A woman who's lost everything, seeking revenge on those who did it. It reminds me a little bit like that Jennifer... why am I freezing on Jennifer Garner's name? On that Jennifer Garner action film last year where her family was murdered. It was kind of like a female John Wick thing. So the premise is a little similar to that, but clearly more dramatic at the same time. And I watched this. It felt visceral. It felt intense. It felt like this was going to be a showcase for Blake Lively, which I think is just great. And I'll tell you what, Rob, I actually went ahead and put up a tweet this morning after I watched this. And I wrote, who's going to break it to Ryan Reynolds that he is no longer the greatest action star in the Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively household? Because she looks like she is fitting right into the action genre. I loved what I saw. Rob, you had a chance to take a look at it. What did you think about this rhythm section trailer?
Well, I've been kind of, this is one of the movies I've been most looking forward to. It's kind of a stealth movie. It's based on a series of books, the Stephanie Patrick novels. And obviously, Michael Wilson and Barbara Broccoli, the James Bond film producers, acquired this book. And I can see why. There's always been talk of them trying to do a female-oriented. They were going to do a Jinx spinoff after Die Another Day with Halle Berry. I think they've always been looking to have a female-led action franchise. And this is obviously, it's a literary adaptation. It was directed by Reed Morano, who was a cinematographer, and she moved over. She was directing episodes of Handmaid's Tale. I don't know... she directed this, so I've really been excited for this. I thought they would show us some of this at CinemaCon last April, and all they showed, they just put up the logo and talked about it, and I'm like, oh man. But yeah, this to me, I mean, man, if this movie hits, I've loved Blake Lively. She did a movie called Age of Adeline.
Yes.
Which is a unique, I mean, Harrison Ford's in it. I love that movie. It's a romance. It's a time travel movie, sort of. And it's a fantasy. And I love that movie. She is radiant in that. I think she's one of our great screen presences. And I don't think she gets nearly enough credit because every time, like you said, every time she's in a movie, she brings it. And I can't wait to see her kicking some major ass. And I hope this movie is as good as it looks because I've been waiting to see it for a long time.
Question here is, guys, have you had a chance to watch this rhythm section trailer? If not, you really must make sure you do. And if so, what did you think about it? Jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys, with all that down and out of the way, let's move on to our main topics today. And there's a couple things we're going to do here. We're going to cover our main topics, and then the second half of the show, we're going to take your live questions. Listen, if you want to get in a live question, you can just go over to the link. You'll find a link in the top line of the description of this video, or you can just go to streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. Go ahead over there. You can submit the question there. It is a great way to support the channel, and it guarantees that your question gets asked in today's show or in a forthcoming video at the same time. Okay, now let's go on to our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with the main topics by simply going anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, fill out the form with your topic or question. It's totally free. Submit that topic or question, and then maybe, just maybe, there's a possibility you may see your topic or question featured here as a main topic on The John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted into us by Greg Battlein, who writes, I know that we're still fairly far off from getting any X-Men stuff in the MCU, but did you see that outlets are saying that Patrick Stewart has met with Kevin Feige to talk about returning as Charles Xavier? Do you think these reports are true? And if so, when do you think we could see Stewart back? All right, thanks a lot for sending in that question, man. And first of all, the answer to the question of, could this be true? Oh, it is 100% true. Patrick Stewart and Kevin Feige did meet to discuss the ideas. Well, they probably discussed several things, but one of the things was the possibilities of him coming into the MCU as Professor Charles Xavier. This is from Patrick Stewart himself. I believe he was doing an interview with Digital Spy, and he said the following. I met with Kevin Feige a couple of months ago, and we had long conversations. And there have been moves and suggestions, which include Charles Xavier. Hugh Jackman and I were moved by the story of Logan. We were moved by one another. We were moved by the movie. But we also both made the decision that we were saying goodbye to our characters as well. In that sense, it was not just the death of those two men in the franchise, but it was also goodbye to our parts in them as well. So that comes from Patrick Stewart. So that tells us a couple of things, Rob. First of all, and maybe the main thing that it tells us, is Patrick Stewart himself is absolutely confirming that, yeah, he and Kevin Feige did get together, and he and Kevin Feige did, as at least a part of those discussions, he says there were long conversations, but at least a part of that conversation had to do with the possibility of maybe him reprising his role as Professor Charles Xavier now in the MCU. And Rob, just that possibility opens up a Pandora's box of what our understanding has been regarding what's going to happen with the X-Men and that entire world once they come into the MCU. Because, and for damn good reason, and from everything that's been said up until now, the assumption has been that once they bring X-Men and that whole universe into the MCU, it's going to be a rebooted franchise. It's not going to be a continuation of the things that we've seen and all that kind of stuff. The very fact that Kevin Feige was sitting down to talk to Patrick Stewart about this blows away a lot of assumptions. Now, that is still very well, Rob, the way they could proceed. It's very well could still, I would even say likely, that when the X-Men do come into the MCU, it's going to be a rebooted thing and all that kind of stuff. But the very fact that Kevin Feige sat down to talk to Patrick Stewart about that, it raises possibilities that I, quite frankly, didn't even think were a possibility. That I didn't even think was a possibility at the time. Patrick Stewart then goes on to say, Rob, that, me and Hugh Jackman, he actually tells this great story about the first time him and Hugh Jackman watched Logan together. I believe it was at the Berlin Film Festival. And he says the last 9 minutes of the film, him and Hugh Jackman held hands. He said we were both weeping and crying, and we held each other's hands as we were going it because we knew this was the end of this long, long journey that we've been on together. It's actually a beautiful damn story. I would pay a lot of money just to hang out in a bar for a night with Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart.
Especially if you could hold their hands.
Especially if we could hold hands while we're doing it. So, but he seems pretty insistent that no. But how insistent can you be if the meeting still took place? Because I know if somebody calls me and says, John, I'd like to meet with you about a proposal that I'll give you $5 for you to cut off your left thumb. That's not happening. And no, so I'm sorry, there's no point in us meeting together. I am 100% not going to cut off my thumb for $5. So no, there's thank you for the invitation, but we're not coming to meet. This meeting happened with what Patrick Stewart called long, long conversations. So as much as he's saying, no, I'm done with the character, you have to at least believe there might still be, in the words of Dumb and Dumber, so you're saying there's a chance. Like, there's got to be at least some monochrome of a possibility here. Rob, let me ask you this, because this is really fascinating to me. What does the fact that Kevin Feige and Patrick Stewart even met to discuss this due to your perception of what the upcoming X-Men would be in the MCU? And despite his clear reluctance, do you actually think there's any possibility we could see Patrick Stewart pop up in the MCU given this story?
No. I mean, look, I think Kevin Feige is a huge Star Trek fan. I am sure Kevin Feige would love to sit down with Patrick Stewart just to talk Star Trek, much less X-Men and all of those things. I really think that, look, there are always possibilities. We had a movie where we saw two different Xaviers from two different timelines, and I think the MCU is going to have to reestablish the X-Men from scratch to make it work within the context of the MCU. And look, that's not to say that maybe they'll figure out some way to do it, but I just can't see it happening because Patrick Stewart's going to be 80. And if they want to establish the X-Men in the MCU, they could make X-Men movies for another 2 or 3 decades if they wanted to, if they played their cards right. And I just don't see Xavier, unless they want to set him up and kill him, if that's part of what they're going to do. I don't know, but he already had a great send-off. I mean, like we said, they were holding hands in a movie theater knowing it was the end. And I think if they brought Xavier back, does that mean they're going to bring everybody back? And if they did that, I don't know, John. It doesn't work for me.
I mean, we got to keep in mind, too, Xavier already died once in the third X-Men film. And then inexplicably was just back after that because, of course, the mantra of Fox X-Men was continuity, schmontinuity, whatever. Look, it seems to me, for a couple of the reasons that you brought up so articulately. Number one, Patrick Stewart is at the age now where he's rounding out his career. He's got to be thinking about retiring and just enjoying life pretty soon. He's got to be thinking about that. But so I don't know that you start a new franchise with an 80-plus-year-old Patrick Stewart. I just don't see why Patrick Stewart would even want to bother doing that. It's like, dude, I've done this for long enough. Thank you very much. But I also think that, and I've said this for a long time, Rob, they've got to restart the X-Men. Like, you can't, there's just too much baggage. And listen, I love the Fox X-Men movies for the most part. There are clearly a couple of clunkers, no doubt. But the thing is, it was a continuity, schmontinuity kind of mess. You had to go into the X-Men and just appreciate each film on its own individual basis and all that kind of stuff. And if you're getting this new start by bringing it into the MCU, I think you got to start fresh. It's just that Kevin Feige doesn't strike me as the type of guy who does something for nothing or for no reason. So it's just kind of still intriguing me. But I tend to lean with you, Rob. I don't think this is going to happen. Patrick Stewart does seem to be pretty resolute in that. And I think the right thing to do is to reboot it. But listen, guys, it is still a curious question, the fact that they even met to talk about it. So I decided to make that the topic of today's question of the day. So I went on Twitter just a few minutes before we started the show, and I asked you guys this question. I asked, with Feige meeting with Patrick Stewart about Professor X appearing in the MCU, do you think, despite Stewart's reluctance, that we could see him in a Marvel film? And a little over 1,200 of you guys have already voted. And I'm going to be honest, I'm surprised. 37.5% of you guys actually do think, hey, Feige doesn't do something for nothing. That, yeah, 37.5, and that's a higher number than I thought there would be, but 37.5% of you guys are saying, yes, we do think we're going to see him at some point. 62.5% of you tend to agree with Rob and I on this, saying, no, probably won't be at this point, but it is a fascinating story nonetheless, just the fact that these guys met. I'm going to leave this poll up for the next 24 hours, guys. You guys can go over there and vote on that. And overall, guys, what do you think about this? How does it shift your perception of the upcoming X-Men, knowing that Patrick Stewart and Kevin Feige even had a conversation about that at some point? I want to know what you guys think. Jump down to the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. All right. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Glenn Faulkner, who writes, "Hey, John. I was really happy to read that Joaquin Phoenix won Best Actor at the SAG Awards, 11 years after Heath Ledger won for Dark Knight. I wanted to know what you thought of Phoenix's crediting Ledger's performance for his win, saying that he was standing on his shoulders. I thought it was very classy. Do you see a lot of Ledger's Joker in Joaquin Phoenix's Joker?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, for those of you who missed it, we talked a little bit on yesterday's show about the precedent-breaking win of Parasite, the first foreign film in the history of the SAG Awards to win their equivalent of Best Picture, which is Best Ensemble. But a part of that as well was that Joaquin Phoenix ended up winning the SAG Award for Best Lead Actor in a Performance. And tailing off his acceptance speech, which was a great speech, he actually threw in this one line, which I thought was very, very interesting. I know a lot of you found it interesting too. Joaquin Phoenix said the following: "Really, I'm standing here on the shoulders of my favorite actor, Heath Ledger. So thank you and good night." He says at that point, thank you and good night. Rob, I thought that shout out was interesting on a couple of levels. Because one, he decided to use the terminology, "I'm standing on the shoulders of Heath Ledger." When you make a comment like that and you're saying like, I built this on this, or I'm standing on the shoulders of this, or I'm following in the footsteps of this, the implication, intentional or not, but the implied message seems to be that I was influenced by this. I kind of continued on with what this previous person did. To say I'm standing on the shoulders of Heath Ledger almost suggests that a part of his Joker was based in what Heath Ledger did as Joker, which I think is, and then he goes on to say that Heath Ledger was, of course, his favorite actor, which I thought also was a really, really nice thing to say. Glenn asks an interesting question, though, in his message when he asks, do I see any of Heath Ledger's Joker in Joaquin Phoenix's Joker? And the answer is actually resoundingly no. I really don't. And that's not a bad thing. I think you clearly see in the core of the DNA the Joker character, like we got in Jack's Joker, like we got in Mark Hamill's Joker, like we got in Jared Leto's Joker. You clearly see that it's Joker, but his Joker was so uniquely standalone in his own world that I really didn't see a lot of similarities to Heath Ledger's Joker. And I kind of feel like what Joaquin Phoenix was doing, and I actually applaud him for this. I don't say this is a negative thing. I applaud him for this. I think he was just saying something very, very nice. To make that comment, I think he was cognizant of the fact that he was standing on the same stage that Heath Ledger was standing on when he won the SAG for playing the Joker as well. And I just thought it was a very, very nice thing to say. But I actually I don't interpret that he built his Joker on Heath Ledger's Joker at all. Rob, you had a chance to take a look at this. What do you think about Joaquin Phoenix's statements there at the SAGs? And do you think he kind of modeled in any way his Joker after Joaquin Phoenix or after Heath Ledger's?
No, I'm with you. I don't think that he really meant that. I think as somebody who admired Heath Ledger and his performance, I think what Joaquin Phoenix was saying was that this comic book character, the Joker, for an actor that I admire so much like Heath Ledger to have taken on the role, proved to him that there was something about this character that was valuable, that was worthwhile.
That's good.
Yeah, to approach it as an actor. And I think what Joaquin Phoenix probably learned from Heath Ledger is that if you throw yourself into this role and make it your own, the take on the Joker that we got from Heath Ledger was something we'd never seen before. And it was something that I thought was unexpected. When I saw the movie, and I'm like, wow, in our post 9/11 world, this agent of chaos, this performance was brilliant. And I think that as written, the Joker, Todd Phillips' Joker, had really nothing to do with that character. But what it showed, I think, Joaquin Phoenix is that you could throw yourself into this role with wild abandon and not worry that he's based on a comic book character, but turn it into something that, as an actor, something that is uniquely yours.
Oh. And we seem to be losing Robert somehow, some way. All right. We'll see if we can get Robert back here. For now, as we struggle to see if we can get Robert back at this point here, we'll just keep rolling here for now on the question. I think Robert might be experiencing the same issues, maybe a little bit of internet dropout issues on his side right now as well. But listen, that does raise the question for you guys, though. What do you make of Joaquin Phoenix's statements? Do you take them as saying that he kind of maybe modeled part of his Joker after the other Joker? Or like Rob so astutely kind of observed, that he just kind of said that as a realization and an acknowledgement that Heath Ledger kind of laid the groundwork that this is a character that can be done in a very, very dramatic way? Or was he just being really nice and sensitive? How do you interpret that? Jump down to the comment section below and leave me your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down and out of the way, let's move on to main topic number 4. And our fourth main topic today gets sent in to us by Geeky Gator. And Geeky Gator writes, oh, I'm sorry. You know what, guys? I skipped over our third one. Let's go back. Let's go back to our third question of the day. And Tim Nolan sends in our third question today. And Tim Nolan writes in, hey, John and crew, Honey Boy director Alma Harrell recently brought up the idea of splitting up the Best Director category in award shows into 2 separate categories, one male directors and one female directors, stating that basically if we can do it for actors and actresses, we should have no issue doing it. We should have no issues doing it for directors as well. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, Tim. And it is something that has been brought up many times. The notion of, what if we created 2 separate categories for director? Best male director and best female director. And let's see if that fixes the problems. Because, of course, there was a little bit of controversy in recent years, like when, particularly this year, when no female director was nominated for best director. I don't personally have a problem with it because I thought the 5 directors who were nominated deserve to be nominated. And actually, even the 6th person that I would put up in there, which was Taika Waititi, I believe the 6th. So I actually have no problem with the nominees, and I don't believe in nominating somebody just to balance out the scorecard. I just don't believe in that. But it has raised the question of, what if you create 2 separate categories? And I'll tell you why I don't like the idea of creating 2 separate categories, one for male director, one for female director, when we do indeed have 2 different categories for male actor and female actress. Here's why. And I believe it comes down to the same reason why we don't have two different categories for male cinematographer and female cinematographer. Why we don't have two separate categories for male costume designers and female costume designers. Why we don't have two separate categories for male makeup artists and female makeup artists. Why we don't have two separate categories for male documentary filmmakers and female documentary filmmakers. This is my position on this. And you may agree or disagree, and that's totally fine. But this is kind of the way I look at it right now. When you look at the role and the purpose of actors, acting is about embodying a character and bringing that character to life in a certain way that makes it tangible, relatable, and creates an experience for the audience. And I've had people raise some arguments against what I'm going to say, and some of them actually aren't bad arguments, but not enough to sway me off this. I still kind of believe this. The job of portraying a male character, I believe, is very distinct and unique from the job of portraying a female character. I just think this, as genders, we have very unique characteristics about us as genders, like male and female, and I know the issue even goes more complicated than that, but just for the purposes of this discussion. And I therefore see that the job of getting on screen and portraying a female character as a very unique artistic endeavor from the job of getting on screen and trying to explore and present a male character. They present very unique challenges from each other, and they almost are really two very different jobs. That's just how I interpret it. I'm not saying that's how you need to interpret it. I'm not saying that's the right answer and every other answer is wrong. Don't misinterpret me. It's just that that's kind of the way that I've seen this. So understanding that, when you look at the role of, say, a director, that's not the case anymore. That's not the case in the role of a director. The director, be you male or female, the male or female director in that chair has the exact same job. It's the exact same thing that needs to be done. This story needs to be told in a particular way that is going to make it the most effective, bring out the best performances out of your actors and actresses, and to give the audience an experience. It's the exact same job. Much like you don't separate out and create two separate categories for best male costume designer, best female costume designer. Because when it comes to costume design, it's the exact same job that you have. Unless you're saying only men can design men's costumes and only women can design women's costumes, which obviously we're not doing. So the job of the costume designer is still in and of itself, it is the exact same thing. It's the exact same thing. So I just don't see how having a best male director and best female director has any benefit. Whereas when it comes to actors and actresses, that is the one time out of all the categories that I see there being personally justification for having them split by genders, because I believe the job of an actor and the job of an actress and the types of characters they portray are so staggeringly unique from each other. They're so staggeringly unique from each other. As being that unique from each other, I think it creates an environment that it justifies having two separate categories because they are just, again, so wildly different. Whereas the job of a director is the same job regardless if you're a male director in that chair or a female director in that chair. So look, I know there's going to be lots of different ways to approach this. I know lots of different people who have lots of different opinions about it. I know there are people out there who think every category should have male or female. I know there are people out there who think every category shouldn't have a male and female, including actor and actress. And that's fine. But if you're going to ask me, my position on this is, I just think actor and actress, there's justification for two separate roles. Everything else, I don't believe there is. So my kind of approach to her suggestion is, I don't think that's a good idea. There may be many who do. So that brings it to you guys. I want to know, how do you feel about that whole issue about whether we have actors and actresses playing one role or actors and actresses having two separate categories while everything else has one category? How do you feel about it? How do you think they should approach it moving forward? Jump down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. With that down and out of the way, let's move on to main topic number 4. And the fourth main topic today gets sent in to us by Geeky Gator, who writes, "Hey, John and gang. The filming locations for Spider-Man 3 have been revealed with the typical Atlanta, LA, and New York locations, but one odd location, Iceland. I've seen many people speculate that this means Kraven will be the villain because why else would they go to Iceland? Do you think this location really actually reveals anything?" All right. Thanks a lot for the question, man. And listen, obviously, so many of us are so excited about the fact that Sony and Marvel were able to get their crap together and come together, make a new deal to allow for at least a couple of more Spider-Man films with Spider-Man in the MCU until his ultimate departure, whenever and however that's going to happen. But for now, we got a couple more, and they're going to start shooting this new Spider-Man thing here within the next few months. The reports came out that we're going to have one of the locations be Iceland. Here's what I think about this Iceland, because immediately a lot of people start jumping to the conclusion everybody wants to look for meaning in everything. Did you hear they're starting shooting on a Tuesday? What does that mean? Did you hear that the guy's going to use a stick? What does that mean? I mean, everybody, and that's just our natural inclination as film fans, right? We instantly start looking for what does it mean? They're shooting in Iceland. What does it mean? I'll tell you what it means. It means nothing. I don't believe it means anything. Now, obviously, it could. I could be wrong about that. But as of right now, I don't believe that them shooting, like Iceland being one of their locations, means absolutely anything at all. And here's why. Because the months that they're shooting in for this movie, the months that they're going to be shooting this movie, there's not going to be any snow anywhere. There's not going to be any snow anywhere in the months that they're going to be shooting. Not in Atlanta, not in New York, and certainly not in Los Angeles. So all this tells me, seriously, the only thing that them shooting in Iceland tells me is that they need a set that's going to have some snow. That's it. That's all it tells me. They could go to Iceland and make Iceland look like New York if they wanted to. They could go to Iceland and make Iceland feel like Chicago if they wanted to, depending on their set constructions and all that kind of stuff. Now, it could very well be, there is a possibility here that Iceland could in fact be Iceland in the movie. That's possible, but it certainly is not a certainty by any stretch of the imagination. Just because they're going to Iceland to shoot there, that does not mean it's Iceland in the movie. It very well could be Toronto. It could be Calgary. It could be, I don't know, it could be Vermont. It could be North Carolina in the winter. Does North Carolina have a winter? I have no idea. I don't know my U.S. geography. But it could be anything. The only thing that them shooting in Iceland definitively tells us, I believe, is that there's some scene or section of the movie that needs snow, and that's it. Just because it's in Iceland doesn't mean it's Iceland. Guess what? They shot a lot of Doom Patrol and a lot of Titans in my hometown of Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. It wasn't Hamilton, Ontario, Canada in the shows. Just because they need something there, it doesn't necessarily mean everything. Now, at the same time, I want to make sure to be clear that it doesn't exclude the idea that it could actually be Iceland. Like they're going to Iceland because it's going to be Iceland in the movie. I'm not saying that idea is excluded at all. I don't think it's likely, but it's not excluded. It very well could be Iceland. And if it is Iceland, then maybe there's some narrative possibilities about why this movie and there are scenes and sections of this movie taking place in Iceland. That is all still on the table. It's absolutely a possibility. But I think the bigger probability here, they just need a location with snow. They just need a location that's going to be actually cold and actually have real snow on the ground to give it some authenticity. That's all it tells me. So it could be Chicago, it could be Boston, it could be Detroit, it could be any of these places whatsoever. It doesn't need to be Iceland. So I don't think any of us as film fans should get too caught up in the speculation of wondering of, they're shooting in Iceland. Does this mean Kraven is going to, I don't think we should go too far down that rabbit hole yet. Maybe at some point we'll need to, but right now I don't think there's any need to go down that rabbit hole yet. Question is, guys, what do you think about this and that one of the shooting locations is in Iceland. I personally don't feel like it probably means anything, but there are possibilities there. How are you feeling about it right now? Jump down into the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. Okay, guys, with all that down and out of the way, we are now going to move into our live questions section of the show. Once again, if you want to send in a live question, you just go over to streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. Again, there's the link is right in the top line of the description of this video, and you can send in your question there. For now, going to take a quick 4-minute break to rest the vocal cords, stretch the legs, refill the drink, probably use the bathroom, give you a chance to go and use the bathroom too. So hang tight, guys. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Guys, and we are back. Thank you so much for your patience and indulgence as I went there to refill the drink and all that kind of stuff. Let's now get on to your live questions that you guys have been sending in. And we're going to start things off here, getting caught up with one or two we didn't get around to yesterday. Froigon Jin writes, 2019 recap. Best, Ford v Ferrari. It is a great movie. Worst, Last Christmas. Most disappointing, Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, that might be mine too. Most pleasant surprise, Crawl. Dude, I'm so glad you mentioned Crawl. And I think that is a great category for it. Most pleasant surprise. Because Crawl on its surface, you know, cheap little horror movie. Ooh, flooding in Florida and there are gators coming. Whatever. But then the trailer dropped and you're like, oh my God, that actually kind of looks like fun. And the movie was a blast. The movie was an absolute blast. Not one of the best of the year, but I love the way you categorize that, Froigon. One of the most pleasant surprise movies of the year. I completely endorse that. It is absolutely one of the most pleasant surprises of the year of 2019. All right. An anonymous viewer writes in. Iger calls you and Rob and says, Kevin needs ideas on how to integrate the X-Men into the MCU. Which X-Men do you introduce first and in which movie? Mine would be Rogue and Captain Marvel 2. No. I understand they did that in the, comics. I get the connection between Rogue and Captain Marvel in the comics. But as we say all the time here, the movies ain't the comics. You know, the movies aren't the comics. So I don't really see that. Personally, I think the best way to bring in the X-Men is with X-Men. Honestly, I do. I think if you're going to go the single route, then you go with a very recognizable figure. And maybe that even means Logan. Now, some people, some small picture people may go, oh, but I'm so tired of Logan. Maybe you are, but you got to think bigger. You have to think big picture. And the big picture is Logan or Wolverine is the most popular X-Men character that there is. And so you may want to go that route. But honestly, for me, I start the X-Men with X-Men, period. I start X-Men. I don't just kind of, because then you got to explain, you have to just bring in rogues. Like, what the hell is Rogue? What's a mutant? How is this part of anything here? Just like they didn't introduce Eternals by bringing in, you know, Angelina Jolie's character into one movie, then bringing in Kumail Nanjiani's character into another movie. No, you bring in Eternals. And I think that's probably the best way to approach the X-Men. It'll be interesting to see what they do, though. All right. Willow writes, I know it's immature, but I couldn't stop giggling when you said the other day that Tennessee couldn't get any penetration. I knew somebody was going to say something about this, but the 49ers will get penetration. My coworkers will asking me what's so funny. It's okay. Yeah, it's a little immature, but we're all a little bit immature when it comes to gigs. I remember after I finished saying that, Willow, I have to admit, I thought, you know what? Someone's going to give me a hard time about the way that I said that. So you probably weren't the only one that was giggling at that, Willow. I probably was too in my head a little bit. All right. Commodore Man writes, for the last 5 years, I've binge watched a lot of short series programming on Netflix and Amazon and been happy with it. Watched Lonesome Dove again over the weekend. You cannot convince me it isn't the greatest miniseries of all time. You know what? I cannot even remember Lonesome Dove. I cannot even remember Lonesome Dove. Which one was that again? I want to say, was Paul Giamatti in that? Hold on a second. Now it's just gonna plain old bug me until I look it up. Hold on a second. I know it was a Western. It was from the early 90s, right? Early 90s? No. Sorry, it was 1989. And I'm sorry, it was Robert Duvall, Tommy Lee Jones, Danny Glover, all that kind of stuff. I don't remember it. But man, I'll probably have to go back and watch that at some point. Oh, Ricky Schroeder was in that too. Oh my God, I don't know that I realized Ricky Schroeder was in that. All right, a great Canadian kid writes, I agree with you that Robert Downey Jr. may want to come back to the MCU now, but the MCU may not need him at this moment unless future MC movies flops. If Marvel continues good without Robert Downey Jr., do you think there is still a chance for him to come back? Yes. Yeah. Look, Iron Man and Captain America are the two most popular characters they have. Look, I'm not, and by the way, it's not going to take Marvel movies flopping for him to come back. Marvel movies are going to do fine. Okay? Marvel movies are going to do fine without Robert Downey Jr. They're not going to flop. They'll be fine. But is Black Widow going to make $1 billion? I don't think so. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think it will. Most people I've talked to don't think it will. I doubt many of you think it'll make $1 billion. Is, I don't know, is Doctor Strange going to make $1 billion? Maybe. It is a sequel. He's teaming up with Scarlet Witch, so there's possibility there. But it's not about whether or not the films will flop. They'll do well. The question is, will they do better if Robert Downey Jr. is in them and his Tony Stark character is in them? The question is not will they flop without him. The question is would they do better with him in there? And I think the answer to that question is yeah. They'll be fine without him, but they would do better if he was there. It was like the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls were perfectly fine without Michael Jordan. They nearly went to the championships the first year after Michael Jordan after Michael Jordan made his first retirement. They nearly got to the NBA Finals. Nearly. They did well. They had a good season. They were fine without Michael Jordan. But they were clearly better with Michael Jordan, right? So I'm not saying Robert Downey Jr. is the Michael Jordan of the MCU, but he is a very, very important piece to it. And I think it's a matter that he would do better. So yes, if Robert Downey Jr. said, hey, I want to come back, you better believe Kevin Feige and the rest of Disney and Marvel will open up the doors and say, come on in, Mr. Downey Jr. Come right on in. All right. Anyway, next up, Harry Mudd writes, out of all the music composed for the Star Wars franchise, the Imperial March is without a doubt my favorite piece. What about you? Absolutely 100%. Listen, I love the main Star Wars score. You know, there's nothing like the main Star Wars score. Absolutely. But the Imperial March, like when I hear that opening score to Star Wars, ba 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 ba, I mean, that's awesome. But the Imperial March, it fills you with an emotion. You know what I mean? So I completely agree. For me, Harry, absolutely for me, it's the Imperial March. It's my favorite piece of music from any movie ever in the history of film. Is the Imperial March. It's my favorite. So I'm with you on that, Harry. All right, Sam O'Neill writes, hey, John, have you listened to Joe Rogan's podcast with Robert Downey Jr.? I have. If you haven't yet, very interesting. He gives a new look on if he will come back to Iron Man. I personally think in 4+ years he will return. Yeah, I believe, listen, I've said for a long time, it's not going to be this year. It's not going to be next year. It may not even be within the next 3 years, but he'll be back. I believe that entirely. Now, some people have said, but John, if you listen to the interview he did on Joe Rogan, he doesn't sound like he's going to come back. True, but then he did an interview on a national morning show after the Joe Rogan thing, where it sounded like the door was a little bit creaked open. Listen, but the bottom line is right now, it doesn't matter what he says. It doesn't matter what he says right now. Robert Downey Jr. can come out tomorrow and say, you know what, 90% chance I come back to play Iron Man. Doesn't mean anything right now. He could come out tomorrow and say 0.01% chance I play Iron Man. Doesn't mean anything right now. Right now, nothing that he says actually has any long-term meaning. Right now, he's more concerned about trying to promote Dolittle, but look how that's turning out. So yeah, anyway, it was a great interview. It was an insightful interview. But again, I don't take anything away from it, other than all the fascinating stuff in there. I don't take anything away from it in terms of his return to the MCU one way or the other out of it. That's just kind of my feeling on it. All right. Garrett writes, Echo Base Network released a new documentary about the new Star Wars trilogy. It's on their YouTube channel, and you, John, are featured in it. Worth a watch if you get a chance. They reached out to me. And they mentioned that I was going to be in it, and they mentioned that, like, I wasn't interviewed for it, but apparently they use a clip of me in it. And they mentioned it was launching. I didn't realize it was up yet. I'll have to go and check it out at some point. Thank you for reminding me about that, Garrett. All right, an anonymous viewer writes, hey, John, with the new Star Wars being set 400 to 500 years before Episode 1, remember, that hasn't been confirmed. I believe the report because of where it's coming from, but let's just be clear, that's not confirmed yet. Nobody at Lucasfilm has confirmed that that's the case. But it is what I believe it'll be, so let's just go with that for now. With the new Star Wars movie being set 400 to 500 years before Episode 1, who could be the protagonist to the Jedi when in Episode 1, the Jedi Council states that the Sith have not appeared in over 1,000 years, because if they show the Sith, that'll break canon. Listen, kind of at the point now that, look, for the past 5 years, I've seen the importance of canon to Lucasfilm getting weaker and weaker. When Disney first took over Lucasfilm, They had this big grand plan that from here on out, everything is canon. Everything is canon. The comics will be totally in line with canon. The novels will be totally canon. The movies, obviously, will be totally canon, yada, 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 yada. But we've seen chinks in that armor cracking wider and wider over the last number of years, to the point that people would point out obvious discrepancies between some of the novels and what's going on in the movies, and then have, I can't remember if it was Leland Chee, if it was Pablo Hidalgo, both great guys, but I couldn't remember if one of them kind of then came out and said, well, yeah, the books are canon unless they contradict the movies. I don't think you understand what canon means. If something's canon, it's canon. It's not canon unless it contradicts. Well, the moment it contradicts, then everything in it is called into question. It's not canon. If it contradicts, it is not canon. And we've just been seeing more and more cracks in that, from different little details in a lot of the novels to some of the details in the comic books. They've been getting looser and looser with it. So what you could write that off to, when in the Jedi High Council, when they say, the Sith have not been around for millennia, you could come up with semantic argument for that, saying it was just, you could say he was just making a figure of speech. You could say, it was just a figure of speech, when somebody's been gone for a long time, it's like, man, you've been gone forever. Well, really, they were gone for 3.5 hours, but we say again, that's not what I would do, but that is something they could write it off to. So I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. Otherwise, it could be anybody. Could be anybody, could be anything. General Grievous was not a Sith. So you could have somebody else that's not a Sith. You could have, the witches. That could be a part of it. You could have other strains of Force users. We've seen that get played around with a lot in the Star Wars universe. So the doors are pretty wide open, but again, I don't think it slams shut the idea that it could also be Sith. So we'll keep our eyes on it. All right. One of Rob's hot toys, what a great username, writes, I saw A Simple Favor, excellent acting, excellent film, I loved it, and I've never been as attracted to a character in a film as I was to Blake Lively's Emily. Also, I am not an expert in women's fashion, but her character has a killer wardrobe. Listen, it's hard not to be insanely attracted to Blake Lively in anything she's in. Blake Lively, she's just one of these rare combinations. Like, you get these performers and these actors, like whether it's a Javier Bardem or whether it's a Blake Lively, like somebody who's just so blessed with stupidly good looks and stupidly high amounts of talent. It's just almost an unfair universe when somebody gets so much. But Blake Lively is always attractive in just everything she's in. But she's also really a solid actress that I just really enjoy watching. And her and Anna Kendrick were both so good in that movie. And you're right. I also clearly have no fashion sense. I have the fashion sense of a puddle of mud. That is my fashion sense. I have zero. I'm completely helpless when it comes to anything fashion. Blue jeans, black t-shirt. That's all I know. But even I, and apparently you, Rob's hot toy, you look at her clothes and that's like, damn, this girl's fashionable, right? But hey, what do I know? All right, thanks for sending that in, man. All right, Film Boss writes in, Ronald Dahl's The Witches and Stephen King's The Stand are two of my favorite books, so I'm pretty excited that both properties are getting adaptations this year. The former as a film, the later as a 10-part series. Bring it. By the way, I have not kept up to date on the series. And maybe I've got an itch in the back of my brain telling me that did they cancel the series? I might be thinking of something else. Don't panic, because I might be totally thinking of something else. I thought I heard they might have canceled the series, but I don't know that for sure. So maybe it's still gonna happen. Obviously, the movie didn't go the way they wanted it to. Witches, we've talked a lot about Witches over the past couple of weeks. It's been brought up a lot. There is so much potential here. Now, it could go very wrong very fast, but there's a lot of potential there when you look at the director, you look at the cast they've got involved. We've talked about it a lot over the last little while. I agree with you. It is something that we're keeping our eyes on for sure, man. All right. Ben Rayner writes, Hey, John. I know how you feel about Crisis on Infinite Earths. I have to say that I loved it. Well, that's the important thing, Ben. For me, it hit all the points. For me, the story was awesome, and I loved all the cameos. Each cameo felt like a giant award for tuning in. From Tom Welling to Ezra Miller, for me, it worked perfectly. Like I said, I understand your point of view, but I just wanted to share mine. I loved Crisis on Infinite Earths. It was Arrowverse Endgame for me. Well, that's awesome. Listen, at the end of the day, it's all subjective, Ben, and I want people to love the stuff they watch, even if it's something that I didn't like. And you know me, I loved every single Arrowverse crossover up until now. I mean, I thought Crisis on Infinite Earths was a total betrayal of the Arrowverse, quite frankly. I also thought it was a betrayal of the audience. Well, betrayal of the audience is too strong. I retract that. But I thought it was lazy. I thought they really didn't give a shit. And I was worried about that when we heard from Michael Rosenbaum, the guy who played Lex Luthor in Smallville, when he refused to come on because he said they reached out to him and said, "You want to come and be in the crossover? Cool. What's my character? What's Lex going to do? We don't know. We'll just have you come on." Really? That's all the thought you've put into this? That's all the planning you have? Just come show up and you have no idea what he's going to do? Yeah, whatever. Who cares? It'll just be fun. Yeah, no, pass. Like, as soon as we heard that Michael Rosenbaum took a pass because of that, I was worried. And then it came, and it's like, oh yeah, everything I was worried about came to pass. Tom Welling popped up for no purpose. Tom Ellis popped up for no purpose. Ezra Miller popped up so for no purpose that it was even after they had shot the show, they haven't even thought about it. And they go, oh, after they finished shooting the show, should we put in a scene with Ezra Miller? Sure, let's throw in a scene with Ezra Miller. Again, no purpose. To me, that's lazy. If you're going to have Tom Welling, the guy who played Smallville, the star of Smallville, coming on, make the effort to give his appearance meaning. Put in the effort to give his appearance meaning, because his appearance had no meaning. If you're going to pull off a massive coup d'etat, and I give them so many props for this, and have Tom Ellis from Lucifer pop up, give his appearance meaning. Put in the effort, for fuck's sakes. Put in the effort. The audience deserves your effort. Put in the effort to give his appearance some meaning. And they couldn't even bother to do that. You're going to have the original Robin from the old Batman series. You're going to have Burt Ward show up, give his appearance even a monicum of meaning. Nah, just have him on the screen for a second and say a catchy catchphrase. That's all the fans need. I thought it was incredibly lazy. And when you present something that lazy to the audience, I think that's disrespectful to the audience. But as Ben so accurately points out, that was only my perspective. That was my disappointment with it. There are other people, including Ben, including a lot of others, who really, really enjoyed it. And that's great. Like I said, I don't want to yuck on anybody's yum. I want people to love every TV show, every movie that they see, even if it's TV shows or movies that I don't personally like. And I celebrate that because I'm going to like stuff that you don't like, right? That's the fun about being a fan of storytelling. And just because I didn't like it doesn't mean I didn't want you to like it, Ben. And I'm super glad that it worked for you. And I'm really glad that you got those big, high fan moments in it for you and other people like you who enjoyed it. So that's awesome, man. I just wish I could have been there too. I wish I could be there with you. I just unfortunately can't be. All right. Next up, Murray Reich writes, I'm very happy that Waititi will hopefully direct a Star Wars movie. My only concern is with Kathleen Kennedy. Although she has 4 to 5 wins box office results, she still had a lot of drama with creative differences with directors. I hope she doesn't pull another one because I would be disappointed. Well, you know, Murray, that's always been my number one concern with Kathleen Kennedy is all the director drama. She has had more director drama in 5 films than Kevin Feige has had in over 20. That's significant. She has had significantly more director drama over the course of 5 or 6 films than Kevin has had in the whole span of his entire MCU universe. That's concerning. That's a problem. However, I do not think that Taika Waititi would be one of those problems. I believe that once they get on the same page with Taika, I believe everything will be smooth sailing. Kevin Feige clearly had a wonderful experience with them. He's staying under the Disney roof. So I really don't think it'll be a problem. It's much like once they brought in like a Ron Howard, to work on Solo, everything went extremely smoothly. And they ended up turning out a pretty decent movie. I thought Solo was really quite good. Not among the best of the Star Wars movies, but I thought Solo ended up being quite good. But that only came after all the drama with Lord and Miller. So it is something we need to keep our eyes on, Murray. I think you're absolutely right about that. But I feel a lot safer with a Taika Waititi. I don't think Taika Waititi is going to cause any drama. I don't think there's going to be any big red flags that Kathleen Kennedy fails to catch before they start moving forward on it. And by the way, let's keep in mind that he is not officially attached. That's just the report going around that came out of Variety. It's not official yet. So let's just keep our fingers crossed. All right. Pelican Mike writes, I don't know if that's any relation to Prison Mike. As Arrow is ending, can we take a moment to acknowledge what David Ramsey has done as Diggle? He's been my favorite character aside from Oliver throughout the Arrowverse. John, I know you love stories about loyalty and friendship. What do you think about Diggle? I have always loved David Ramsey as Diggle. To me, Arrow was at its best in season 2 and the first half of season 3. That was when Arrow was firing on all cylinders. And it was their Arrow trinity. It was Arrow, it was Diggle, and it was Felicity. It was when the show was about that team. And I do wish they had stuck with the whole opening premise of the show about him going through his father's list. I wish that story had a longer impact on the show, and I wish it had a better payoff than it did. But still, that being said, David Ramsey was a big part of that. And I don't always love everything they did with the Diggle character, but David Ramsey played the hell out of that character. I thought he was one of the most important pieces of that Arrow puzzle that made it work when it was working. And so I'm completely in agreement with you, Pelican Mike. I am completely in agreement with you. All right. Murray Reich writes, while tipping is great, it now becomes pure luck on when your questions get answered live or not. Also, I would like to point out something. Spoiler discussions may be an issue for you because you don't want random spoiler questions on the main show. Your thoughts? Yeah, I gotta figure that out. That's something I have to figure out about how to get those in. And by the way, no, there's no difference between using now for what I am experimenting with right now is no longer using Super Chat on the YouTube Super Chat feature, but it is exactly the same. Like if you send in a Super Chat 5 hours before the show starts, there's no difference between that or sending in using the tip link to send in your question. It's all about when it comes in. So there's absolutely zero difference between knowing when your question is going to come in, whether you use Super Chat to send it in or whether you use the tip feature to come in, because let's put it this way. If you sent in using the tip link, a question using the tip link at midnight, well, then that comes in first. Then if you use Super Chat to send in one at 12:01 a.m., well, that comes next. So there's really no difference there whatsoever. How to handle spoiler discussion videos, that's something I got to work out. That's something I do have to work out, and I'll get that figured out before we do our next big spoiler discussion video. What will be our next big spoiler discussion video? Would it be Black Widow, or what's the next big one up? I'm not really sure what the next big one up is, but I'll have to get that figured out by then, Murray. All right, Sam O'Neill writes, hi, John. I am not a reader of anything at all. I even hate it when the menu has no pictures. Nor do I watch much. Nor do I know much about comics. However, I do love Marvel and DC movies. You inspired me to buy Slugfest and read it ASAP. We'll let you know how I feel soon. That is awesome, Sam. And for those of you who don't know what the book he's talking about, you've heard probably me mention it a few times. There's this fabulous book that actually one of the viewers turned me on to, called Slugfest, the 50-year battle between Marvel and DC. And it is wonderful and insightful, and it gives you a lot of, behind the scenes information. It gives you a whole different perspective on the whole thing. It's fabulous. Guys, follow Sam's example and get this book. Either get the hard copy, get the audio book from Audible, whatever, but I think you're really going to enjoy it because it's quite an interesting read. All right. An anonymous viewer writes, after recently rewatching the Star Wars movies, I've noticed that the original trilogy, Vader being the same human Vader being the same human as prequel trilogy Anakin is really bothering me. I was wondering, how do you view it, and if you could share your perspective? I'm not quite sure what it is you're asking. Let me read it again. After recently rewatching the Star Wars movies, I've noticed that the original trilogy Vader being the same human as prequel trilogy Anakin is really bothering me. I was wondering, how do you view it, and if you could share your perspective? I've never, understanding that that's the same character. The Vader we see in the prequel trilogy is the same Vader we see in the original trilogy. I've never really had a problem with that, because once he makes the turn to Vader, right? Once he becomes Vader, there's a lot of time that passes between the end of Revenge of the Sith and the beginning of Star Wars: A New Hope. That means, as a human being, as an individual, he's had a lot of years to evolve to his new reality. And so I've never really had an issue with it, to be honest with you. Now, look, if Star Wars: A New Hope took place 5 minutes after the end of Revenge of the Sith, that becomes problematic. That does become problematic. But because there's so much time, he's now had a life-altering experience. His new reality is living in this life support armor. He is now a Dark Lord of the Sith, and he's had many years to change and adapt and evolve in that new persona, that any differences between what we saw in the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy, even though I don't like the prequel trilogy, I've never really had a problem with that, because to me, it kind of makes sense in that way. So that's always just been my perspective. I can totally see where you're coming from, though. I can absolutely see where you're coming from. I'm just saying that's why, for me, it hasn't really been an issue up till now. So interesting question, dude. I appreciate that. All right. Adam Kalin writes, what is your favorite movie written by Alex Garland? The Beach, 28 Days Later, Sunshine, Never Let Me Go, Dread, Ex Machina, Annihilation. He's probably my favorite screenplay writer. He's definitely one of the good ones. I'll tell you ones that aren't it. The Beach isn't it. 28 Days Later isn't it. Sunshine isn't it. Dread isn't it. Annihilation isn't it. It's probably Ex Machina. Ex Machina is probably my favorite one. By the way, by me listing off, oh, it's not this one, it's not this, that's not me saying those are bad. Not at all. I'm just saying those ones aren't my favorite, but it's probably although Never Let Me Go, I think is maybe his most underrated one. I think Never Let Me Go is maybe his most underrated one. But I'm very, very big on Ex Machina. And by the way, let me look this up. I thought I heard, maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. I thought I heard he was going to try directing. Let me just see here. Alex Garland. I thought I heard he was going to try directing, or maybe he has directed already. Okay, no, he's already directed. Okay, so he directed. Oh, I totally forgot. I knew he directed. He directed Annihilation. I totally forgot about that. And Ex Machina. But I knew he had something coming up. But it was a TV miniseries that's coming up called Devs. So he's got a TV miniseries coming out called Devs. It's a computer engineer investigates the secretive development division in her company, which she believes is behind the disappearance of her boyfriend. It stars Nick Offerman, who of course is Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec, Jin Ha, Allison Pill, Kaylee Speeney, blah, blah. I'm not quite sure what network is going to be on, but I knew he had something upcoming. So that looks interesting. That could be interesting. But yeah, I think my favorite out of that ones is going to be Ex Machina. All right. Mike Gunnison writes, hey, John, one of two. I just want to take a moment to spotlight Damien Chazelle. I decided to sit down and watch La La Land again last night, and I was blown away. I also love Whiplash, but I feel like La La Land is such a refreshing take on a modern-day musical. And to be quite honest, it jump-started my love for jazz. Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling have great chemistry, and I feel like this should have been taken home the Oscar over Moonlight. I disagree. Did you enjoy La La Land as much as me, or am I overblowing it? I really like La La Land. I think La La Land is great. Now, I do believe Moonlight deserved the Best Picture win, just to be clear. At least I thought it deserved the win over La La Land, but I totally endorsed the fact that La La Land got nominated for Best Picture. I thought it's a terrific film. As a matter of fact, right up the street, less than a 10-minute drive, right up the street from our house. If we got on our street and drove 10 minutes that way, There's a restaurant called Smokehouse. Here in Burbank. One of the owners of Smokehouse is George Clooney, and a number of the scenes of La La Land were filmed in that restaurant, including the most iconic ones like the piano bar lounge scenes, was all shot in Smokehouse up the street. Ann and I and fact checker Jonathan and his wife Laura, we go to the dinner there every once in a while. It is a great restaurant. If you're ever in Burbank and if you love La La Land, or if you're ever in the LA area, come to Burbank, look up the Smokehouse restaurant and go to Smokehouse. Because it's great food. It is great food. But yeah, dude, listen, I love La La Land. I think it's terrific. It showed us something from Emma Stone. You know, Emma Stone is a fabulous actress, and she keeps showing us more, and she showed us some new dimensions to her performances in that movie. Ryan Gosling was terrific. Damien Chazelle did such a great job. By the way, his movie First Man was really good. It wasn't as good as I was hoping it would be. To be frank with you, it was not as good as I was hoping it would be. But, I mean, he is just showing himself to be such a good, capable director. I'm always going to look forward to all the things he does next. All right. Thanks for sharing that, Mike. Next up, Murray Reich writes, Season 7 finale of Ray Donovan was really good. Intense shock. I have not seen Season 7 yet. I watched right up to the season finale of Season 6, but I have not watched 7 yet. Intense, shocking ending. Showrunner said that the series is nearing its end. They will decide in the coming weeks if they're doing a new season, which they have to because to close certain gaps. They said 8 may be the last. Well, first of all, always understand this. They never have to do another season. They never have to do another season. It doesn't matter if there are still, storylines that need to be finished. That doesn't matter. If the show doesn't make financial sense to do anymore, they stop the show. So it does not have to have another season. That's an unfortunate reality, but it is a reality nonetheless. I have not gotten around to watching Season 7 yet, which is, I'm not really quite sure why. I really like this show. I really like Ray Donovan. I haven't loved the move to New York. So I don't know if they go back to LA. I don't know what they do in 7. I have not personally loved the move to New York, but I still like the season. So I'm gonna get caught up though. I will get caught up. All right. Moose writes, Yo, Big J, I am a giant fan of the book Killers of the Flower Moon and Creation of the FBI and Horrific Mystery. Recently, I heard Scorsese, Leo, and De Niro are teaming up to make it. Holy expletive. My nerve juices are pumping. Have you heard about this? If I am not mistaken, and I could be thinking about something else. If I'm not mistaken, they announced this. I think, years ago that they were going to do this. I think it was years ago that they said they were going to do this. Let me just pull this up here. Yeah, I believe Killers of a Flower Moon was something that they said they were going to do ages ago. It just never happened. But they're saying right now that it's going to happen. It's going to come out in 2021. If that's the case, then that means they got to shoot this year. As of right now, the only cast officially listed on it are Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro. Of course, those are the two actors who have been his primary muses through his career. He's had others, but those have been his two primary. So it'll be fabulous to see whatever they do there. Listen, Martin Scorsese makes a move. Whatever you think about his comments about Marvel movies and whatever. When Martin Scorsese makes a movie, you pay attention. And if he's going to make a movie with Leo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro, then you especially pay attention. So, yep, I don't know much else about it, except this has been on the radar for a while. But it'll be really interesting if it actually does get around to happening. All right. Echo Base Network writes, about something somebody read in. Did you get a chance to see our documentary that you and Robert Meyer Burnett are in? We had a great live stream afterwards with Robert Meyer Burnett, Doomcock, The Amazing Lucas, and several others. We'd love to get your feedback, positive or negative. Good luck to you with your project as well. No, I have not had a chance to see it yet. I will check it out. I have not had a chance to see it yet, but it was funny that you mentioned it because somebody a little while ago just mentioned it was up already. So I will have a chance to check that out. Thank you for the reminder. All right. Dido Cortez writes, saw Jojo Rabbit yesterday in a full theater. Oh my God, that shoe scene was one of the most heart-wrenching shots I've ever seen, and it caused quite a reaction from the audience. Taika Waititi just shot up on my list of favorite living directors. Listen, one of the very first things I said coming out of Jojo Rabbit, besides this is my new favorite movie of the year, besides that was, I knew Taika Waititi was good. I did not know he was this good. He showed us things in Jojo Rabbit that I had no idea he was capable of as a storyteller. Because in Jojo Rabbit, he swings us constantly between laughing hysterically and joy and big smiles on our faces to something horrific or terrible or thought-provoking or whatever. And again, for the next 20 years, somebody's going to just be able to say shoe scene, and movie fans will know exactly what they're talking about. He's just capable of that, of taking us back and forth between these emotions and these experiences. I'm just telling you something. I liked Taika Waititi before. This movie made me gain a whole new level of appreciation for him, which just makes me even more excited about the notion of him maybe directing a Star Wars movie, but we'll see where that goes. All right, Benny95 writes, "Hey, John and Rob." Of course, Rob's not here right now. "I hope you're doing well." We are doing well, thank you. "I just finished Actors Roundtable from the Hollywood Reporter on their YouTube channel. It's 60 minutes long with Shia, Jamie Foxx, Adam Sandler, Adam Driver, Tom Hanks, Robert De Niro. I think you'll both love it." Now, the Hollywood Reporter has done a lot of these roundtable things, and they're always fascinating. It's not always actors, sometimes it's directors, whatever. They're always fascinating. And I'm glad you caught on to that one. They do a really, really good job with that. And if you haven't checked those out, now I don't think I've seen this one you're mentioning, so I don't know if this is a new one or not, but I have not seen this one you're mentioning. Having Shia LaBeouf on there is really kind of interesting, but they're really, really great. I'm glad you got turned on to those, Benny. All right. Dude Man Bro, I love the name, right? "John, what are your excitement levels for Venom 2? If I'm honest, mine is at 0. I hated the first one. Like you with Godzilla King of the Monsters, I felt embarrassed to be sitting there watching it. I'm still shocked how they managed to craft something together." My excitement level for Venom 2 is probably around the 80% mark. Because unlike you, and all film is subjective, you're going to feel one way about a movie, somebody else is going to feel differently. I was very entertained by Venom. I had such a great time with it. I just thought it was fun in all the right ways. I thought the action was really much better than I thought it was going to be. I love the dichotomy dynamic between, Tom Hardy as the one character and Tom Hardy as the other character, and the dynamic between those two split sides of him, I thought was thoroughly enjoyable and thoroughly entertaining. Now, look, it's certainly not a movie that's for everybody. It has its detractors, so you are by no means alone, dude man, at all. You're not alone in that. But I had a surprisingly really good time watching it. And I knew the movie was going to be successful, but I didn't think it would make $800 million. I didn't think it would make north of $800 million. I said, this movie's going to be successful. It's going to be a success, but not $800 million. And it made over $800 million. So yeah, I'm actually one of those people, and you're one of the people that didn't love it so much, and that's perfectly fine. All film's subjective, and if you didn't like it, you didn't like it, no problem. But I gotta be honest with you, man, I really did enjoy Venom. I had a very, very good time with it. I thought it was quite entertaining. All right, Connie T writes, "You said the shoe scene on Friday's show, and I immediately burst into tears. P.S. My tip from the weekend got skipped. Lucked out in getting a Rise of Skywalker Resistance opening day thanks to Mom, whose son ditched her. Was one of the last to ride it. Great ride." Well, I did not. Honestly, Connie, I don't remember. Do me a favor. Just email me. If that happens, email me at john@thejohncampeashow.com. It is very, very rare that I miss a question, but it does happen from time to time because I'm human error. But if it does happen, just email me at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Tell me exactly when you sent it and tell me what it was about, and maybe I can find it. But yeah, I mean, I'm telling you what, Connie, that shoe scene. Oh my God. I mean, and I remember, and I'm not going to spoil it for people who haven't seen. That's why we just say shoe scene. But when the shoe scene happened, I was unprepared. And the shoe scene even started, and I still didn't kind of grasp what was happening. And then it clicked into my brain. I'm like, oh my God. And it was just, and you're right, Connie. It is one of those things that when you think of it, even after seeing the movie, it elicits those same emotions you felt in the movie when it happens. It's just crazy, beautifully orchestrated by Taika Waititi. Just a masterful, masterful moment that I'm going to remember as a film fan for the rest of my life. Let's see. Dude Man Bro writes, terrible for me. It's on Catwoman and Fantastic Four levels. Oh, you're talking about Venom again. Of bad. I want Morbius to be good. The trailer was awesome, but my faith in Sony to pull this off with their own cinematic universe is non-existent. And again, that all comes down to how you experienced it, and that's unfortunate. I mean, there's movies that everybody loves that I don't, and I wish that I did, but I didn't, so I can't be on that same excitement level. And whatever. But again, Venom was a win to me. For me as an individual audience member, it was a win, and a very, very fun win. And I know everybody's movie theater experiences are different. It's just, I remember I went with Ray. Me and Ray went to go watch it. And I just remember our theater was like just cheering and laughing hysterically in all the right ways, and big applause at the end of the film. I'm sure there were movie theaters that watched the exact same movie where it was dead quiet and everybody just grumbled after it. I'm sure that happened too. But again, because Venom was a win, that just makes me even more hopeful for Morbius. I like the trailer very much, but I still think this is a movie that could go south real fast. I think it has a lot of upside and a lot of potential, but it is also a movie that could go south very, very fast. So let's just keep our fingers crossed for it and hope it turns out good, man. All right, ZMG Ruler writes, all due respect, John, I did not think Brie was a good fit for the role. Even Oscar winners can be cast in the wrong roles. Captain Marvel was a bland and boring film, in my opinion. I personally would rather see her friend Monica take the mantle. She was Captain Marvel in the comics once. Oh, hey, listen, you're totally entitled to that opinion, and you're not alone. I completely disagree. I thought she was very well cast for the role. I thought she played it exactly the way the director wanted the role played. And she is a terrific actress. I mean, she was going to be able to do, she's an Academy Award winning actress. She was going to be able to do whatever the director wanted her to do. Whatever the director could envision for the character to do, she's going to be able to pull it off, and she's going to be able to do it. And if you got another talented actress, if you didn't like the way Captain Marvel was portrayed, guess what? If you had another actress in there, it still would have been portrayed the same way, only maybe not as well, because that's what the vision of the producers and the director was for the character. So that's what she brought. So I disagree with you completely. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think Brie Larson should win an Academy Award for Captain Marvel. I'm not saying that, but I thought she played the role really well. And it's one of the big reasons why Captain Marvel made over $1 billion at the box office. I mean, it just is what it is. She didn't work for you. That's totally fair. Totally worked for me, though. Totally worked for me. All right. Fabian Vegas writes, really looking forward to Dune. Me too, man. Villeneuve is one of my favorite directors, and I can't wait to see how it turns out. That being said, I've never read the books or seen the old films. Should I, or should I just wait for the film to go and release? Like, that is a great question, Fabian. That is a great question. Yeah, okay, because here's the thing. I personally have a personal rule. If a movie is coming out that's based on the book, then I will not read the book until I see the movie. My rationale for that is I don't want to develop my own pre-existing expectations about how a character should look or how a character should sound or how this should play out on the screen. Because that's all just machinations of my own mind, right? And I don't like to do that. So I will almost always wait to check out a book after I've seen the movie. I did make an exception for Hunger Games. Hunger Games I made, I hadn't read Hunger Games till they announced the movies were coming out, so that one I kind of bit the bullet and I read the Hunger Game books. But for the most part, I'll always try and wait. But something like Dune. You know, I would say go back and watch the original film. Or go and watch the original sci-fi miniseries that came out like 10 years ago with William Hurt. You can go and check that one out too, because it might actually give you a deeper appreciation for the new movie once you see it. Again, though, it's a tough call. What about you? What do you guys, for those of you who have either seen the old Dune, either miniseries or movies, or if you've read the Dune books, would you tell Fabian to go ahead and watch or read the Dune stuff first, or would you suggest to wait until you see the new and watch it totally clean? Watch the new movie totally clean. I don't know what the right answer to that is. What do you guys think? Give Fabian your advice. All right. Russell Amador writes, hey, John. I submitted a couple of questions Saturday morning in anticipation of a potential open mic, but that didn't happen. Do you know if you'll get around to answering those? All of them did get answered. I went all the way back to Friday and they all did get answered. So double check on that, but they all did get answered. Do you know if you'll get around to answering those? On another note, finally saw Jojo Rabbit and loved it. Now get Now I get the shoe scene talk. Yeah, now you get the shoe scene. But yes, every question that got sent in over the weekend did get answered. So you might want to go back and double check that. But yeah, now that you've seen the movie, you understand the shoe scene. Oh, jeez. Now you totally get it. All right. Mary Sade writes, The Call of the Wild is being released as a 20th Century Fox film. I expected this prestige live-action family film to come under the Walt Disney Pictures banner. Disney owns both studios. How is this sort of branding being decided? Because, listen, while they're both under the same banner, you still have different divisions. Like, look, Disney owns Marvel and Disney owns Lucasfilm. Just because they own Marvel and Lucasfilm, when a Star Wars movie comes out, you don't just slap the Marvel label on it because they're not the ones who worked on it. 20th Century Studios, is that what they're calling now? Because they're taking the word Fox out of it. But 20th Century, they have their own staff. Yes, they're under the Disney umbrella, but just so is Pixar, so is Lucasfilm, so is Marvel. And so since that division is making it, then that's the division that gets the label put on it. It's really just kind of, again, think of it in terms of Pixar. If a Pixar movie comes out, you don't put Lucasfilm on the title. You don't put Fox on the title. You don't put Marvel on the title, unless it's a Marvel Pixar film. But it's a Pixar film. That's the division that made it. Fox is now a division, one of the film divisions of Disney. And so if it's the Fox division that made that film, then that's the one that gets the label put on it. All right. Alpha Oeduago writes, I've always contended that Denzel was the better actor overall, but that Will Smith has displayed more range. Thoughts? I disagree. Also, over under 60%, John's new documentary is about toxic fandom and or subjectivity of movies. The answer is no. It is well under that. That is not the topic of the documentary. I disagree. I do not believe Will Smith has more range. Will Smith is a dynamic movie star and a damn good actor, an Academy Award nominated actor. He's very, very good. Make no mistake about it. He's very good. And I finally got around to watching Bad Boys for Life. I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was great. I'll be honest with you. I did not think Bad Boys for Life was great, but it was fun. I enjoyed it. I'm down for a fourth one if they want to make another one. Why not? Anyway, Will Smith is very, very good. And he's just a incredibly fun guy to see on screen. I loved him in Aladdin. I've loved him in a lot of stuff. He's got dynamic range, sure, but I still think Denzel Washington, he's the man. Like, he's not the GOAT, but he is one of the greatest of all time, I think. And so, no, I think Denzel has got it all. I think he's got it all. So all due respect to Will Smith, who I enjoy very, very much, and he's wonderful, but I give that to Denzel by far. All right, Blake writes, this is a broad and general question, but why do Hollywood execs keep approving these $180 million budgets for movies that aren't slam dunks to do well? I get it for Avengers and Star Wars, but Dolittle, Terminator doesn't seem smart. Thanks. Because it's a risk. There's very little, if anything, that is a slam dunk. You know, you make the movie and you believe that this has the potential to do well. There's no guarantees in this business. That's the thing. There are no guarantees. You know, and in this movie and executives too, they choose to take risks on certain things. It's always a risk. And sometimes that risk pays off in spades. And sometimes the risk makes you fall flat on your face. And look, so what you do is you try to make as educated of a guess as you can. And if you look at the concept of Dolittle, okay, it's going to be family film. We're going to have Robert Downey Jr. hot off the heels of Endgame. It's going to have CG animated animals. We're going to have this extensive, including Tom Holland, we're going to have this extensive voice acting list. It's going to be a family adventure sort of film. Listen, you've just given a lot of reasons that a lot of people in an executive boardroom will go, okay, we can take a risk on this. We think this has the potential to do well and to be a hit for us. But it doesn't always work out. And listen, it is so easy, Blake, for us, because I do it, you do it, we all do it. It is so easy for us know-nothing movie fans to sit back and play Monday morning quarterback and say, oh, well, clearly they shouldn't have done that. Well, yeah, that's easy for us to say after we've seen the results, right? Hey, I'm guilty of this too. I think all of us as movie fans do this. It doesn't make it any less stupid that I do it, but I mean, we all do it, right? It is so easy for us in hindsight, after the results have come in, to point at something and go, oh, well, obviously. Look, I personally had some, you guys know because you've seen me for a long time, I personally had some reservations about Doodle. I thought, really, is this a concept that will work today? But honestly, if you're sitting in that boardroom and this pitch is made, family film, adventure film, Robert Downey Jr. star, this huge, impressive voice cast, CG animated animals and blah, 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 blah. Listen, every single movie you make is a risk. And even at like 150 plus million before they had to do all the even unplanned reshoots, it's like, yeah, I can totally see them taking that risk. You know, it is what it is. And look, we as film fans will whine and bitch and moan and complain that Hollywood isn't making original big blockbusters. Well, if you want original big blockbusters, that means studios are going to have to put up a lot of money and take a big risk. And if it works, there's a huge payoff, and we've seen that happen. When it doesn't, it's a huge loss, and we've seen that happen. So it's just easy for me and you, Blake, to sit back and play Monday morning quarterback on it, though. It's just very easy for us to do that. All right, Ryan Lohner writes, by the way, was that Blake? Yes. All right, Ryan Lohner writes, the word is now out that John Williams has a cameo in Rise of Skywalker as a bartender on Kajimi named Oma Trez, an anagram of Maestro. Oh, I didn't even realize that. Oh, I mean, I knew he made an appearance in it. And it's funny because you're in the theater and you can tell instantly who knows who John Williams is. Because when he pops up on screen, you see which people go, oh, and everybody else who's just looking at like another character. And it's very obvious it's John Williams, right? I did not know that they gave him that name as an anagram of Maestro. That's pretty cool. When John Williams actually does his concerts every year at the Hollywood Bowl, the name of the concert is John Williams, Maestro of the Movies. That's the name of the concert series he does every year. And Anna and I go every year. I think we might have just seen his last one. I don't know officially if he's going to do one in 2020. So we went to his 2019 one for sure because we feel like that was probably his last one. But hopefully it wasn't his last one. Hopefully he'll get one more in. All right. Thanks for that, Ryan. That's interesting. All right. King Z writes, where are we at? It's crazy how Marvel became this huge name. As a 90s kid, I never imagined this in my wildest dreams. Now we have Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel, Iron Man, and Spider-Man all interacting on the same film. Mind blown. I can only imagine what the future holds. I mean, listen, King, you're saying, you're reflecting what a lot of us have been saying for a number of years, ever since the MCU really started to get rolling. That, you know, when we hear people like Robert Meyer Burnett or John Schnepp talk about, you know, growing up reading these comics, never once imagining that you could actually see all this on the big screen someday without it looking completely stupid. It's absolutely incredible. And I would say the real advent of that was the first Avengers movie. What Joss Whedon did, and listen, we are what have you done for me lately? Like very short-sighted, 140 character Twitter, short attention span culture of people. That's what we are. So I get it. There's Infinity War and Endgame, all that kind of stuff. None of it matters and none of it exists if it wasn't for that first Avengers movie. That Joss Whedon Avengers movie. That was the movie. It's also great when you talk to John Schnepp, which obviously you can't now, but I remember when we would talk to John Schnepp or you talk to Robert Meyer Burnett, you talk to these guys who had been reading comic books for so long. Yeah, Iron Man was great and it was a revelation. And Captain America, the First Avenger is wonderful. And I love the first Thor movie and all that's true. But when that Avengers movie happened, it changed everything. That Avengers movie that Joss Whedon did that could have gone south so badly changed the narrative, it changed the game, and it changed film history. And now, something that we have waited 80 years for, we're now already starting to take it for granted. We're now already taking for granted that you can have an Endgame, or that you can have a Guardians of the Galaxy, or that you can have an Eternals. We are already, in just a few short years, already taking that kind of stuff for granted. Not realizing prior to that Joss Whedon Avengers movie, just how far out there, just how impossible, just how remote the notion of getting movies like that actually seemed for so long. And it was Joss Whedon's Avengers that changed all of it and blew the doors open. And it is incredible what Marvel has been able to achieve, man. And let's see where they go from here, man. A lot of people are wondering, where do you go after Endgame? Was Endgame the peak, and now are we going to see it start to descend? Don't know. I'm really interested to find out, though. I'm really interested to find out. All right. Ethan Hunt writes, I was relieved that you got my bare naked ladies joke. Of course I got the joke, man. Good Canadian kids. My bare naked ladies joke about your net worth yesterday. I vaguely remember you saying you were a fan, but after I sent it, I couldn't remember. And I was like, wow, if he doesn't get it, I'm going to come off as real jerkish. No, you did not come off as real jerkish. Actually, I'm tempted to pull up my guitar and start playing If I Had $1 Million right now. But my guitar is over there in the corner in a guitar case, so it would take me like 30 seconds to get it. I won't waste 30 seconds of your time. But yes, totally got it, Ethan. The good old bare naked ladies. Absolutely, man. All right. I was thrilled to see somebody put in a question that was referencing the bare naked ladies. All right. Ethan Hunt also writes, I was reading Star Wars Dark Disciple because I was trying to catch up on the canon novels, but my God, this is a chore. I took a break halfway through. The only thing worse than a forced romantic subplot is a bad forced romantic subplot. Have you read it? I have not read Dark Disciple, as a matter of fact. Hold on a second. Star Wars Dark Disciple. Let me just pull it up here. No, and that one came out a while ago. And I remember when it came out, I remember I was thinking about picking it up, and somebody, and I cannot remember who it was, somebody mentioned to me, don't bother. I remember somebody mentioned that to me. It was a Star Wars fan. I can't remember which person on my team it was that said it to me. But one of them said, yeah, I read it, don't bother. So I kind of skipped that one. So no, but also, Ethan, I have heard, I know a couple of people that like it, but I also know a couple of people that really didn't like it and told me to just stay away from it. So I have not had the privilege of reading it myself. I probably won't ever get around to it. But thank you for the warning on that, Ethan. I appreciate it. All right. Let's see what's next. Ross Geller writes, hey, John, Hollywood Reporter just posted a roundtable with, we were just talking about this, with Adam Driver, Robert De Niro, Sandler, Tom Hanks, Shia LaBeouf, and Jamie Foxx. Check it out. Truly amazing actors. It is. And by the way, you know, there's no Academy buzz forming any kind of stuff, but what a year for Shia LaBeouf. Between Honey Boy and Peanut Butter Falcon, which is an incredibly special movie and just beautiful performances all the way around. What a year for him, man. And I don't know. He's just a few crackers short of a full pack, but it'll be interesting to see him to get into some larger films again. Because this dude is like talented beyond words. Like, I remember a number of years ago when he was in Fury with Brad Pitt. You had Brad Pitt, John Bernthal. You had this really incredible cast. But to me, Shia LaBeouf stole that movie. He is a beyond incredible talent, and if for no other reason. I mean, even if Shia is not on this roundtable, that's a lineup you want to see. But add Shia LaBeouf to that group of actors, I am dying to see it. So thanks for that, Ross. All right, Murray Reich writes, have you seen the trailer, Spencer Confidential? It's a Netflix film starring Mark Wahlberg. No, but last night I was on YouTube and I saw that in my recommended list. So I didn't get around to clicking it. I have not seen it yet myself. But I know the one you're talking about. It's a Netflix film starring Mark Wahlberg, directed by Peter Berg. No big surprise. It's being released in March. Looks solid. Hope it's better than the disappointing Mile 22 made. And by the way, what a disappointment that movie was. Especially when you consider that, like, Peter Berg and Mark Wahlberg were coming off of 3 incredibly good and incredibly successful films all in a row. I mean, they were just on fire. As a director-actor combo, they were just on fire. And then Mile 22 happened. Whatever. 1 out of their last 4 wasn't so good. Whatever. Because their previous 3 that they did together were great. And so if it's those 2 working together, You got my attention. You got my attention. So no, I have not watched the trailer yet, but I will get around. Thanks for making sure that kept on my radar, Murray. All right. Marie Seifring writes, I just saw the first episode of season 2 of your best movie, worst movie podcast pop up on my playlist just before the show started. Yeah, looking forward to Weekly Hero 2. Yeah, so Robert and I have fallen way behind on Weekly Hero. I mean, there's just no getting around. Between Robert's schedule with his trying to wrap up Tango Shalom, my regular show responsibilities, and me working on my documentary, it's been hard. It's been hard. But yes, episode 1 of season 2 of Best Movie, Worst Movie with me, Cody Miller, and Robert Meyer Burnett went up this morning. So you can find Best Movie, Worst Movie on any of your favorite podcast apps, or I think almost any of them at any rate. But the season 2 went up. This season is going to have 6 to 8 episodes this season. We've already recorded the first 3 because Cody Miller was in town this week, so we decided now's a good opportunity for us to record the first 3 episodes. We're going to record the next 3 episodes over the next few weeks, and then probably another couple after that. So we're probably going to do 8 episodes this season. But the podcast is now up, and the topic of the first episode of season 2 of Best Movie, Worst Movie is, because we just got out of it, it's the films of 2019. So we go over our best and worst of the films of 2019. So go ahead, subscribe to that podcast. And if you already are, you're going to see that the new episodes are now available. So thank you for mentioning that, Maria. I appreciate that. All right. Matthew Phillips writes, if Hugh Jackman wanted to re-enter the superhero genre without playing Logan, which do you feel is most likely? He's involved in the MCU, a Grandmaster type of role or cameo. He joins DC, Harvey Dent, or somehow appears in a Deadpool film. Well, I mean, Deadpool might be in the MCU, so I mean, there's that too. I would have to think, because of the long ongoing, amazing faux Twitter feud between him and Ryan Reynolds, which is just one of the most entertaining, wonderful things online. If you just don't need any other reason to be on the internet, it's this faux feud between Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds. Just one of the best things on the internet. Anyway, I got to think it would be Deadpool. I got to think the most likely scenario would be him being in a Deadpool film. So, I mean, look, anything else is possible. DC's a possibility. One of the reasons he was really looking forward to stop playing Wolverine, though, was he didn't want to have his 2.5 hour a day workouts. I mean, so I don't know if you're going to see him as a lead character or a lead hero anytime soon, but I got to believe that the most likely scenario would probably be Deadpool just because of that feud, that faux feud that he has. All right. Harry Mudd writes, out of all the music composed for Star Wars franchise, the Imperial March is without a doubt my favorite piece. I think you mentioned that earlier, Harry. I think you mentioned that earlier, and I completely agree. My answer has not changed. I completely agree. All right. Harry also writes, good. I can feel your anger. I am defenseless. Take your weapon. Strike me down with all of your hatred, and your journey towards the dark side will be complete. One of the great lines in the greatest scene of the greatest movie of the greatest film franchise of all time. The original Star Wars trilogy, Return of the Jedi, the Emperor's Throne Room scene, and that is just one of the great lines in the greatest scene of the greatest movie of the greatest film trilogy of all time. That is just, it's a terrific line. Just the way he says it, the way Ian McDiarmid just says it with such conviction, and it's just, so good. Such a great line. All right. Harry also writes, Netflix has procured the whole Studio Ghibli catalog for streaming in all regions except the USA, Japan, and Canada. HBO Max will stream the movies there. Yeah, I did see that. That was really interesting that they divide up those rights like that. You just think if they were going to give it, well, you know what it could be? I don't know this, but maybe HBO Max got the rights, but they're not going to be in a bunch of territories, so that just still leaves those territories available. Netflix said, well, I'll pick up the rights to those territories. Maybe that's it. Other than that, it seems really strange that they would divide them up, but that's probably what it has to do with. All right. James Argento writes, Stewart Good just returned for Deadpool 3. I mean, and how perfect would that be? How perfect would that be? And you know what, James? Now that you mention it, wouldn't that make the most sense? Because listen, one of the big question marks we have right now is surrounding the whole, what are they going to do with Deadpool? How are they going to bring Deadpool back? Is he going to be rated R? Is he not? If he is rated R, is he going to be in the MCU proper, or is he going to be kind of outside the MCU? Like, how are they going to do all that kind of stuff? But really, when you think about it, the most logical thing for Kevin Feige meeting with Patrick Stewart about bringing maybe him back as Professor X, the way that most makes sense would indeed be a Deadpool movie, wouldn't it? I like your theory. I think that's brilliant. I think you're onto something there. All right. Patrick O'Connell writes, sends in a $50 one. Thank you so much for that, Patrick. And since you send in a $50 one, I will answer it right now, but then we'll also put it up as his own standalone video a little bit later. Keep your eyes open for that. All right. So thank you for supporting the channel on that level, Patrick. We appreciate that around here. Patrick writes, I'm curious if you've heard of Paul Feig as wanting a crossover with the Ladies Ghostbusters of 2016 to show up in the afterlife world. In my opinion, the 2016 film was a failure. So do you think the 2016 Ghostbusters showing up at all in the future? Well, remember, listen, this is what people do. Pump the brakes on this, because that has been like advertised as if Paul Feig held a press conference. Excuse me, everybody. I'd like to call a press conference, gather around everybody. I have a statement to make. I am on a mission to put my Ghostbusters films into the new Ghostbusters universe. No. He was asked about it. He was like, nah, blah, blah, and he gave an answer. And then all of a sudden it turns into these headlines. It's not a real thing. It's not a real thing. So don't even worry about it. As far as the 2016 Ghostbusters goes, I am actually one of the very few people that I did not think it was terrible. I wouldn't say it was really good. Don't get me wrong. I thought it was funny. To me, the biggest problem I had with the 2016 Ghostbusters, and this is what really prevented it from being a good movie, was its sickening over-reliance on past film references. Look, everybody, do you recognize that statue? Ooh, look, everybody. It's, Bill Murray. Ooh, look, it's like every 3 seconds. Every 3 seconds. Like they're trying to make, hey, we're making our own Ghostbusters. Cool. But they spend most of their time not making it their own Ghostbusters and constantly having these stupid, pointless, pop culture references to the Ghostbusters franchise, like every 3 seconds. And it just so totally flattened everything. But I thought the humor was good. I thought their action sequences were fun. Again, I don't think it was a good movie, but I didn't think it was a total disaster. But it didn't do great financially. That's no good. But no, I think that whole franchise is done. That whole potential franchise of the 2016 Ghostbusters, that's done. I don't think that's ever going to see the light of day again. And everybody is taking Paul Feig out of context here. He's not like he's like, I'm on this mission. I'm going to the studio heads and I'm trying to get. No, it was a comment made in response to something he was being asked about. I really wouldn't read anything more into that, Patrick, than that. But no, I do not think. Just to reemphasize again, I do not think that 2016 Ghostbusters is ever going to see the light of day again. I think you're not. Maybe a fun cameo or something in a future Ghostbusters film, that's possible, like a little wink cameo, but actually having the characters of the 2016 Ghostbusters in this afterlife Ghostbusters universe, no, I can't see any reason why you would. I can't see any way in which that would be a good idea, and I just don't see why the studio would be motivated to do it. You know what I mean? Especially when you consider the financial results of that film. So I got to say no. I think you're safe. I think we're all safe. All right. Next one up comes to us from Epstein didn't kill himself, writes, I want to see Dolittle, but I live in Orlando and there's a ton to do and I hate theaters. Uncomfortable, overpriced, and sometimes gross. I only really go out for Marvel these days, and theaters have to be a bit to blame for non-Marvel movies' low attendance. Well, I mean, I guess it all depends on what kind of theaters you like. All the theaters where I live are great. I mean, I live within a 10 to 15 minute walk of 3 AMC theaters. The big monstrous AMC Burbank 16, the AMC 6, and the AMC 8. And the AMC 6 and 8 are both smaller theaters, but they all have the leather recliner chairs, great sound systems, blah, blah, blah. The AMC Burbank 16 is one of the most busy and popular movie theaters in the country, blah, blah, blah. I mean, yeah, the theater itself is absolutely a part of the movie-going experience. And if you have a crappy theater and you're not doing what you need to do to make sure your theater is a pleasant experience for people to come into, then you're damn right. You're damn right. that plays a role in it. The movie-going experience is a systemic kind of from top to bottom experience. Things are not divorced from each other. You've got to first, it even goes to things like parking. Like, I won't go to a movie theater if I got to drive around forever just to find a parking spot. I want a good experience. And that goes from everything to how easy was it for me to buy my tickets, to can I get there easily? Can I park easily? When I come into the theater, is it an exciting environment? Is it big and bright? Is there like something going on? Is there something to tantalize me? Is there the smell of popcorn in the air? All that kind of stuff. When I go into do you have a good selection of things from a concession stand? When I go into my theater, is the picture good? Does it have good sound? Am I comfortable in my seat? I mean, it all is absolutely a part of the movie-going experience. And that is something I think a lot of people overlook. Now, look, I've only ever been to Orlando once in my life, and that was for Star Wars Celebration Orlando. Had a wonderful time in that town. But I don't know what the movie theater experience there is like. I have no idea. I'm very lucky that all the movie theaters I go to are all great movie-going experiences, whether it's like the iPic Theater, the AMC theaters here, the ArcLight Hollywood is a wonderful movie-going experience. So I'm really lucky on that level. But if you got crappy theaters, man, yeah, that's like 20% of the movie-going experience, and that really sucks. All right, let's see. Where are we at here? Okay, and our final question today, and we'll wrap things up here, guys, today with this. D308X writes, did you watch the backdoor pilot for Green Arrow and Canaries? No, I did not. I don't like Mia, and she reminds me of season 1 Roy, but Laurel is in it, and I've always liked her. Just hope they treat her better than they did on Arrow. Also, finished What We Do in the Shadows 3 months till season 2. I have not finished it. I've watched 1 or 2 episodes. I love it. My wife is insanely in love with that show, What We Do in the Shadows. So I do got to get caught up with it before season 2 starts, because I'd like to watch season 2 right along with my wife. So I got to see if I'm able to do that. Listen, I have zero care for Oliver's idiot kids. I have zero interest, zero enjoyment, zero anticipation, and zero intent to watch anything about Oliver's idiot kids. I have no desire. By the way, just to be clear, I'm not casting any shade whatsoever on the performers who play the roles or anything like that. Not in the least. These are badly written characters that just became a source of extreme annoyance to me. I have no desire to watch any show that features Oliver's idiot kids. So I'm probably not going to check that out. But now watch what happens. It ends up being the best show on television. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here, guys. And thank you to all of you who sent in the questions, not just because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but also because you supported the channel while we were doing it. And all of us here, thank you so very, very much for that. Don't forget, guys, the John Campea Show returns again tomorrow. Maybe we'll have Robert Meyer Burnett, maybe not. I might have to just start getting Robert to come into the studio again. I mean, we've been trying to make it a lot easier on him. First of all, my studio's a mess because all the equipment's all a shambles because we're doing our documentary at the same time. But also, I just thought it'd be easier if Rob didn't have to make the 25-minute drive to my place and then the 25-minute drive home, if he could just do it from home. But maybe we're going to have to start doing it with him in studio. We'll figure it out. We will get this situation with Rob's technical issues figured out, and hopefully we'll see Robert Meyer Burnett on the show again tomorrow. And don't forget, guys, the new season of Best Movie, Worst Movie podcast has launched. Episode 1 is now up with myself, writer, producer, editor Robert Meyer Burnett, and of course, Olympic gold medalist Cody Miller. The new one's up on the films of 2019. Go and check that out on your favorite podcast app of choice. All right, guys, that will do it for me for now. Thank you so much for being here and allowing me to be a part of your day, guys. My name is John Campea, and until next time, folks, bye-bye.